Go ahead and close your eyes if you can. Smoothing out your forehead. Relaxing the corners of your eyes and your mouth. Unclench your jaw. And rolling the shoulders away from the ears. Together, we're going to take a deep inhale through the nose. And exhale out the mouth, letting go. Another deep breath in through the nose. Really filling up your diaphragm and your lungs. Holding at the top. And exhale, letting go out the mouth. Gently opening up your eyes if you had them closed. Welcome back to Mindful Moves with me, your host, Daniela Jensch. I am, as always, very grateful to be seated here with you guys. I know that last week we skipped a week. I took a very necessary little pause from everything, from posting to recording an episode, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that I know my energy and I know my systems, and when I'm overwhelmed and if I have too much on my plate. And as you guys know from the newest video I released, I have written a book and I'm so excited to get it out in the world. But with that comes a lot of admin, especially if you're self-publishing and figuring everything out. And so I just decided to take a little break because you are in charge of your life. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I have people around me that are still so supportive and allow me this beautiful purpose that I can do that. So thank you guys. I did have 2 people reach out and ask if I stopped. So it was really sweet. I appreciate that. Anyways, we are here to speak about something that ties in perfectly with this book creation process. And I think a lot of us can relate to the feeling of wanting to create, but instead getting stuck in a cycle of consuming. And that ranges from social media to books to informative courses where you're taking in information and you're processing, right? And your brain is taking this all in. Something that really shifted for me is noticing where to create and where to consume. And I think that many of us desire and have a deep feeling within to create. And something I want to preface before I dive into this episode is that when you are creating and you are activating the play in your life, whatever it may be, whether it's playing an instrument or writing in your journal or creating a blog or starting something new that you want to share with the world, whatever degree you want to do it to, it's so important to know that there doesn't have to be a final product. You don't need to produce something when you are creating. You can create just to create. It is such a fulfilling feeling for us humans to just use our imagination. When you look at kids, you can see how much joy they get from all the little things going on inside their brains. They have imaginary friends, they can imagine certain scenarios, and they are having the most fun. And I think that this play is what I want to focus on. Naturally, when we create, there's very often a tie to then eventually sharing that with the world, if you feel called to do so. But this episode is not about production. This episode is about creating for whatever reason you want to create. This is the key. In my personal journey, I had created this beautiful book, but it's never as simple as it seems. It's never as easy, or it's never as streamlined as you would think it would be. You would think, I have everything together in my life. I wrote the outline of the book. I wrote the book. I published the book. That's really the furthest thing from how this happened. And I would love to share the story because I think that so many of us can relate, because when I started doing this and started compiling this book, I just looked at everybody else doing it and I just thought, oh my goodness, it's so easy to just do it. Why don't I just do it? So in my personal story, I have always had the desire. I think it was 2009. I was on a beautiful road trip with my mom. We traveled across Namibia and we spoke so much. And it's my favorite memory. It's really just such a lovely time where we just got to be in nature. And I think everyone can relate when you're in a car, you can just speak and everything just flows. And we had spoken about all these beautiful practices that I had said to my mom, and we both agreed that we wish more people knew about these things, how to ground yourself. And although back then I didn't know the term nervous system and nervous system regulation, but it was exactly what we were talking about. And so this idea, this seed was planted back in 2009. Then, as mentioned in the other video that I shared with you releasing the book, I had gone through some very hectic health challenges, and that led me to diving very deep into the science and the understanding and the holistic practices that helped me bring my body back to a state of homeostasis and in balance. However, despite having gone through that beautiful journey, I can say that now, during it wasn't always so sunshine and rainbows, but going through that beautiful journey afterwards, I just couldn't wait to share this. And I knew that it had come across my path and it had happened for a reason. And I just realized I want to share this with the world. And originally, I didn't even think I was going to write a book. I thought I would just do a little ebook or a PDF and share it. But this thing just snowballed into this beautiful creation. And the key here, I wanted to create. My energy system wanted to create. I wanted to do something. I wanted to open up my imagination and see how I could best share this with the world, and even just make a guidebook for myself. So often, even if we learn lessons, it's sometimes just a nice reminder to come back to these thoughts and to come back to the lessons that you've learned or what works for you, right? So this was a collective thing. This was for me, but this was for more people, because I never wanted people to feel alone during that process, because it can be very isolating to be going through health challenges and your body is just not in sync with you. It can feel very lonely because we are the only people who are existing inside our bodies, right? I would hope so. There's just us in there and in our thoughts and going through the pain and going through the suffering. And so it was so important to me to share that with the world, because even if just one person felt a little bit less alone, number one, and number two, just feeling like they have a little bit of information that's easy to take in, nothing too complicated. But the point being, I had this desire to create. However, one of the reasons so many of us consume, number one, it's a big dopamine hit. It's really depending on what you are consuming. So obviously, naturally, the way social media is designed, the colors, the sounds, everything about it, the length is very, dopamine receptive. So a big dopamine hit might come from that versus reading a book and consuming books. There's different levels. The point being why we do it is because there's a reward system built in our brains. So already that makes it very inviting to just consume. Secondly, we consume because it is much easier to consume than it is to create when you think about your nervous system, right? I've mentioned before, your nervous system is the built-in safety system that wants to keep you safe. Creating sometimes makes you vulnerable, and being vulnerable equals in your brain not being safe. And your nervous system doesn't like that. So it already feels, anytime you want to leave your comfort zone, you know that feeling. There's like a little bit of an alarm bell going off depending on the level of which the danger is. And so for our nervous system, it's already kind of I don't know if you should be doing this moment. We also consume rather than create. And this was something that I really struggled with, is because sometimes we doubt our worthiness. We doubt that we know enough. And so we'll keep watching a certain topic or taking a course or reading books on it and say, I need to know more. I don't know enough. I'm not the type of person to be able to put a book out there or or maybe even you just want to paint and you want to paint a beautiful portrait of a woman. So you keep watching videos about how to paint this woman, but you never actually put your paintbrush on the canvas. And this is the thing, this is the trick that happens, is that you think that you need more But actually what you need is less. You need less of everything around you. You need less information, less stimulus, less voices and stories and narratives, and you need to tap in to that creative desire within you, because it wouldn't be there if it wasn't already a fully fledged existence of creativity. You don't need to fill it up or nurture it by adding more. You actually just need to make everything a little bit more silent. You need to make everything a little bit more palatable so that you can listen to what's going on inside. And this doesn't have to be a deep thing. It doesn't have to be an emotional thing. It can be, and it should be, a really fun thing. When you switch to the art of creating and playing and coming back to this sense of childlike self, you are doing yourself such a favor, because number one, you are so very present. You're so present in the moment, you're creating. And when that part of your brain is activated, I swear it is one of the deepest healing things that I have ever experienced. Coming back as well to a state of really questioning, why is it that we constantly feel like we need to prove our worth and our worthiness, or produce or have more, when actually there is a big part of us that just wants to be. And part of being is sometimes just creating, whatever that is to you, whether that's baking, not baking so that you can open a bakery and sell croissants, just baking, or just making pottery, not making pottery, glazing everything, posting it online and selling it immediately. I think this is the key. The first step to creativity is to slow down and switch off the outside noise and just come back to what it is that makes you happy. And a lot of the time, what brings us such joy is what we loved as children. If you come back to that, it is such a key aspect. I used to have a tiny little diary when I was a kid, and I used to write and write. I don't think any of it made sense, but it made sense to me and it brought me joy, and there was no final product that needed to happen. Now you might think, well, she's talking about writing a book and that means it's going out in the world. I can firmly and honestly say to you that the part of the journey that I allowed myself to enjoy the most was the creation. It was everything that went with it. It was doing the mind maps. It was thinking about how I want this to look, what type of illustrations, the colors. This was the most fun part. Working with someone, I had the most amazing designer on this job, working with someone who saw my vision, bouncing ideas back and forth. This is what brought me joy. And so the message that I want to make clear is that don't rob yourself of the joy of creation just because you have a goal and an outcome at the end. Enjoy the journey. These past few months, 6 months of me creating this book, if I had let every stressor, if I had let every move be based on the fact that I want to produce something, I can tell you that the last 6 months would have felt very stressful and they would have felt hectic. Whereas I let things flow because I allowed myself the gift of just enjoying the process, enjoying how it flowed, which direction it flowed, taking time off, going back to it. And I personally believe that all humans have something that they wish to create. And it doesn't even need to be for anyone else. You don't have to do it for anyone else. I had a really good friend in my life mention that he would love to learn how to play an instrument. And he had said something that really triggered this idea in me. And he said he wouldn't necessarily play in front of anyone. And I loved that concept so much, because just because you can do something does not mean you need to prove and get validation. You can do things for yourself, for your own enjoyment, for your own fun. And I think we can all take a page out of his book, because I love that concept so much. And so yes, if you're stuck in the consuming side, the answer, and my personal belief, is to create. So many of us, let's talk a little bit about social media and phone addictions, because this is it's on a huge rise throughout all the generations. I know we all say it's the younger generation, but have you seen parents at a dinner table on their phones? It's everybody, right? And all of our attention spans have shrunk a lot, and a lot of us feel that there's a fault within us that we can't stop. I'm here to tell you that the answer is not to hone in on, I shouldn't be on my phone, I shouldn't be on social media, I need to throw my phone away. I personally believe that if you fill your life with things that fulfill you and kind of the opposite, so instead of consuming, creating, naturally the consumption will go down because your brain likes to focus. It's very difficult for your brain to differentiate between negative and positive. Now, let me explain. When you are speaking about consumption, if you keep telling yourself, I can't go on Instagram, I shouldn't go on Instagram, I need to block Instagram, the whole time your brain is hearing Instagram, Instagram, Instagram. The don't and the shouldn't kind of falls away. And so instead of taking that route, work with your brain. Tell yourself something that you want to focus on, right? So I want to play guitar. I'm going to play guitar. I'm going to open YouTube every day and play guitar. I'm going to dedicate time to play guitar. Then your brain starts listening to guitar, guitar, guitar. And Instagram starts falling away. And so this is my personal approach. This is how I've elevated my day because now I fill it with things that I love. Instead of focusing on the things that I'm constantly doing wrong or, just not feeling like I can do or have a healthy balance. And I think a big part of this too is having small boundaries to help yourself, not to punish yourself. I think this is the key. So for me, I always create before I consume in the day, even if it's 10 minutes. If I write in my journal, that's my go-to. So everyone's different. And I think that is something that really helped me through my day, right? So number one, don't shame what you're currently doing. Notice, don't be oblivious. Notice where it is that you feel, I don't necessarily want to fill my day up with Instagram the whole day. And I'm just using these as examples, right? Could be anything. I don't really necessarily want to do that. Okay, notice where it is. But then also say to yourself, what do I want? What do I want to focus on? Where? Because your energy needs to go somewhere. If you can sit in stillness, that's amazing. That's really, really wonderful. A lot of us like to be stimulated, and that's okay. I don't think that that's the issue. I think that your brain was designed to go towards things that bring joy. And a lot of the things that do bring joy in creation take a little bit longer than a 15-second video on our phones. And so with that, you're training your attention span, you're training and redirecting your brain to look at what it is you want rather than what you shouldn't be doing, because there's a little element of guilt attached there. And we don't necessarily need to add that to our pot every day. We don't really need the extra guilt or shame. And so that would be step number one. And then step number two, what works for me, I always create before I consume. This helps me a lot because I think that it's just trained me to tap into me and my abilities and what's going on in my head or heart before consuming the outside noise. And don't get it twisted. We can learn so much. I listen to podcasts a lot. I listen to people's ideas. I read books. I would never tell you not to do that. But finding that balance of tapping into yourself, because guess what? You have wonderful things within you. You have magical things within you. You have desires and dreams that you deserve to at least attempt. And that dream could be just to play the guitar on your couch for yourself. It doesn't need to be a grand gesture. If you are wanting a grand gesture though, and you want to become whatever it may be, you want to become an influencer, or you also want to write a book, or you want to produce music, that's going to take practice. It's going to take practice. And I think that this is something that I really enjoyed with the people around me when I'm on retreats. I always get so inspired because the people I speak to, I was starting the podcast and a good friend of mine said, have you bought a microphone? Are you busy practicing how to speak? And I was like, oh my goodness, no. Like I was waiting until everything's perfect. And he was like, that's not how it works. Practice, go for it, try. Because the more you try, the more you fail. And I know that that can sound funny, but the more you try, the more you learn, because you only learn through failing and making mistakes. So you edge on and you further your progress much quicker by actually doing rather than waiting until everything is perfect. I've said this before. There is no perfect plan. What happens is you make a perfect plan and you wait for it forever. Just begin. Start where you are. Start where you feel ready. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's the intention. if your intention is just to feel that part of your brain light up again, like when you were a kid, or maybe you never had that as a child and you've always wanted it. You never had time to draw and paint because you were constantly looking after your family or whatever it may be. Now's the time. Embrace that inner child. Embrace the free part of ourselves, I believe. Life already has so many rules and so many things that we need to achieve in the day. Our day is filled with so much. And so instead of asking you to fill it more to the brim, I'm saying, where can you do some swaps? Where can you really nurture yourself in that way? So that's the message for today. If you feel that you are consuming constantly, stop shaming yourself. Take a moment, notice where you're at, notice what you do want to be filling your day with, and start filling it slowly. It can be 10 minutes a day, it could even be 5. Start small, and eventually, when you look back, and I promise you, I can give you this in writing, when you look back after 3 or 6 months, you will look back and realize, I didn't have to make myself feel bad to change certain things in my life, certain habits. I just started filling my day with things that brought me joy. Because what is life if you're not going to give yourself the opportunity to enjoy the things around you? We're having a human experience. You might as well enjoy all that it has to offer. So remember, the light that you're constantly seeking outside of yourself is just waiting to be acknowledged within. Have a beautiful day. I hope you go out and create and just exist. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next week.